Daniel Hutchins. We're back again. We're back again live. So, what are we talking about? Well, we're going to be talking about Snow White again. Yes, we're going to be talking about Snow White again. Okay, Snow White reports. Yep, Snow White reports. Okay, so, okay. Yep, Snow White reports. Snow White report. Disney wants to get this over with amid backlash. Story written by Richard Fink. Fresh off the truck 18 hours ago. Following the news that Disney is not holding back on a premiere of Snow White out of concern for the growing controversy around this film, more details paint conflicting narratives, one that is where Disney is sticking by the film. But others note that the company is nervous about the prospect, although it faces backlash and controversy. Starring Latin star Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot as Snow White, and the Snow White live-action remake of Walt Disney's first animation film, 1937 Snow White and Seven Dwarfs of that same name. Now, on paper, Snow White sounds like a good film and a spectacle, but instead, the film is not receiving nothing but a lot of hate. Yes, lots and lots of hate. One theater owner in rival studios told The Hollywood Reporter, THR, that unlike other Disney live-action movies, the massive marketing machine has been rather quiet on Snow White. Until recently, they put tickets up on the movie for Monday, March 10th of 2025. Now, just 11 days before it opens in theaters, Disney insiders have pushed back against the narrative, saying they are trying to hide the film Snow White, saying that they are trying to deny it while also intending to hold back the film's big promotion approach. But until a few weeks ago, they kicked off Zegler and Gaudet presenting at the Academy Awards, again, the Oscars, which happened on March 2nd of 2025. Yet others are not buying it. One exhibition saying to Hollywood Reporter, they've been going through the motion on Snow White, but all I'm saying is we need to get over this. An advanced sales cycle on the ticket has already happened 2 weeks ago, and so we have zero faith on this thing. It couldn't come at any worse time. The industry is just trying to limp along until May. But again, there is more to say. Hollywood Reporter clarified that the premiere has not been canceled. As some headlines reported, instead the studio isn't allowing the regular red carpet press to attend. Now, instead, they are also saying Disney says they are made for more celebratory, family-friendly afternoon events to match the tones to the target audience of their films. It also appears that stars Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot won't be forced to answer questions on the spot, as both they have come under fire for separate reasons. Again, they appeared on the Good Morning America show and Late Night with Jimmy Fallon recently as well, here in the US, that is. And now Zegler went on to Tokyo with director Mark Webb to perform Waiting on a Wish, alongside with Japanese actress and singer Sakura Kiru, and they have provided the voice of Snow White in the Japanese dub. And yes, over in Japan, they actually have a Trevor over in Japan. Okay, now will any of the impact of Snow White's box office hurt us in the background? Well, yes and no, because Snow White has become one of the most talked about films of 2025, but not the reasons that Disney wanted. Because Rachel Zegler, at the end of the day, has hate campaigned since she was first cast as a Colombian descent, while various reports suggest she hated the original Snow White and Seven Dwarfs, despite not being the case. Meanwhile, she's also been a vocal supporter of Palestine and is out against the Trump administration and people who voted for him in the post. She later deleted and apologized for it. Gal Gadot is her own controversial figure because, she came fresh off of the DC Extended Universe. She also is an Israeli actress who's spoken out support of Israel during the event to social media of the pro-Palestine protesters and the boycott for the Israel inclusion of Marvel character Sabra, who happened to be in Captain America Brave New World. Now, Disney wants to avoid another uncomfortable red carpet with multiple fronts. but they're heading right at them. Disney is still putting promotional efforts into Snow White in the head of the film release, hoping a massive media market blitz will draw audiences to it. However, Snow White's currently tracking at $50 million to $56 million opening weekend, which is not too bad, but still could be better, but which could be below Cinderella opened back in March 2015. Also, it would be on par with some of the last big budget Snow White movies done by Universal Pictures, Snow White and the Huntsman, which opened up to a $56 million in 2012. Also, theaters certainly need Snow White to be a hit for audiences, as the start of the year has been much slower than expected thanks to people over at Captain America and the Brave New World and other high-profile titles like Mickey 17 and The Wolfman being underperformance in the box office. Disney's last live-action remake, Mufasa, the Lion King prequel, has been nothing but a family go-to movie for nearly 3 months straight. So audiences might need a new family film. Ultimately, though, all the controversy means nothing to kids nowadays because kids eat up the controversy, as they say. And as the new Disney Princess movie comes out, we have our source again from Hollywood Reporter. Again, that is from Hollywood Reporter, from our friend MSN, Microsoft News. All right, Microsoft News Network. Again, this was about Snow White report Disney wants to get things over with amidst the backlash. So now, what are we going to be doing in this next part of the live video? Well, we are going to be talking about some more stuff. Okay, you want to know some more stuff, right? Right. Did you guys know that they are already predicting what the Rotten Tomato score is for Snow White? They already predicted the Rotten Tomato score for Snow White. This is from our friend the Screen Rant. Set to premiere on March 21st, Snow White, the Disney project, is in a year-long endeavor to adapt the animated film to live action. Now, based on its predecessors and how it will score on Rotten Tomatoes, how do we feel this will be? Well, basically, we already know the story, so let's get on with it. Disney's original Snow White Rotten Tomato score. You want to know the original? Okay. Snow White is a classic, but it's not timeless. Okay. A good place to start when estimating Rotten Tomato score is with the 1937 Snow White. When it's certified fresh with a 97% alongside critics and with a 78% on audience score for, again, the 1937 Snow White. Clearly, these are strong scores points to regular Snow White, but critics have praised Snow White for its charming characters, catchy tunes, and heartwarming story. Meanwhile, audiences have to clear the air for nostalgia, for the film has lasted decades. Undoubtedly, again, Snow White has been an ineffable impact to cinema. So now, of course, being an important film doesn't make Snow White invincible, because critics clearly respect the movie with the 97% score. Audiences aren't quite as convinced with a 78% score. But again, many viewers pointed out Snow White's story is not perfect, and it never was perfect, because Snow White's romance with the prince has furthermore justified herself for a lack of strong sense of self and character. She fell flat, and because, unlike other Disney princesses, she falls flat on her fucking face every single fucking time. So Snow White may have been put Disney on the map, but the company has clearly surpassed the quality, and it began with Snow White. Ultimately, the average Rotten Tomato score for Snow White 7 Dwarfs, when combining the critic score and the audience score, is about 87%. There is still a fantastic score that respects it, though, but again, not by a lot, though, but it also takes into account the film more obvious setbacks in terms of the story, the plot, and the characters. If anything, that is the score Disney Snow White should be reaching for, though it might not be actually able to achieve that. The history of Disney's live-action remakes on Rotten Tomatoes. Disney's princesses can do better than other remakes, but not always. Not always. That's not always the case. Because another element to consider when predicting Disney Snow White on Rotten Tomatoes is how other Disney live-action movies have done. However, we want to say in the past few years, in the last 10 years, we'd have to say some of the best ones or arguably The Jungle Book, and that has about 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. And ones that don't pick up the speed was Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, which has critics split and the audience split at a $1 billion score in the box office. Since then, Disney has put on numerous live-action remakes since 2010, ranging from direct remakes and 2015 Cinderella and spin-offs like 2024's Mufasa Lion King just came out last December. These films, regardless of the form and their accuracy, have varied greatly in terms of success rate. Now, altogether, the average Rotten Tomatoes score by critic score sitting with audience score sits different. But for the overall Rotten Tomato critic score for Disney live-action adaptations, it sits at about 57%, which is very kind of average. But based on that statistic alone, Disney Snow White could fall anywhere in the spectrum of 57%. But it's more likely to earn a mediocre score, similar to the average. However, then again, one silver lining for Snow White is historically Disney princess movies have done a little better than their River remakes. Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast both score above 70%, while Little Mermaid only came close, barely hanging on with 67%. The most part with these films is the source material quite closely. And with the trick of doing that with the critics, of course, these scores are far from guaranteed from the garbage movie we had of 2020 with Mulan, again made significant change to the story, and that only came out with a 72% on Rotten Tomatoes. Disney's live-action Snow White changing the animated movie can be very controversial. Therefore, very controversial. Snow White's other controversies are explained. Now, in terms of accuracy to source material, Disney Snow White may find itself in trouble. Some past live-action adaptations by Disney have introduced too many changes to the original stories, which we remembered, but which upset audiences and made critics dislike the film. Even if those changes seem good and reflect the values of modern-day society, which most of us are, they take away the nostalgia from the story, making the movie feel too different. Already Disney Snow White has itself set apart from the premise, which implies that Snow White isn't just escaping her stepmother's cruelty, but is attempting to overthrow her rule. A princess joins forces with 7 dwarfs to liberate her kingdom from the cruel stepmother, the evil queen. Now again, we already know that. But Disney Snow White has also put a disadvantage due to controversy outside actual content to the film. For example, the movie lead actress Rachel Zegler has come under fire since 2022 for a comment about Snow White character, saying she doesn't like the original, but who also needed to have an update to be more independent. Disney also received backlash for its use of CGI to create the 7 dwarf characters, only whom they actually say are dwarfs. But more recently, Disney's Snow White has also earned attention due to the conflict beliefs of Zegler and her co-star Gal Gadot on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Final verdict, Snow White's Rotten Tomatoes score will be about 65%. So, yeah. Final verdict is Snow White's Rotten Tomatoes score will be somewhere at 65%. Disney Snow White can overcome its bad press. But how will it do that? I really sincerely don't think it will. But again, we just look at this. Disney Snow White will earn about 65% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Snow White 7 Dwarfs with an 87, even though we know the original one is far more superior to the new one in most cases. Now, the Disney live action adaptations earn an overall 57% and results in 72%. However, with an addition to Snow White's controversy, specifically CGI, will make the score lower. But in comparison, the 2023's Little Mermaid, that also had backlash on casting Halle Berry as Ariel, has eventually also received a fair score at about 67%. So the quality is there, but not really there. And then Snow White would do the same fucking thing. So it's true that Disney's Snow White faced several hurdles over the course of development, which may keep audiences shy away from the film. However, based on the movie's trailer alone and first look material, it seems like it will be colorful and magical enough to honor the original Snow White story. But not by a lot, though. But then again, to do that injustice in defense of the movie and find themselves entranced in the live action when Disney has made and created way back in 1937, when they made this first Snow White, making all the backlash fade into background and obscurity. However, Disney Snow White succeeds against all odds. We don't know. We just don't know. So I'll see you guys all later, and I'll see you all later.